Hey guys, so welcome to another Sunday school video. So glad you could join us today. And we just finished the book of James, so we're going in a different direction. We're doing some different things. I talked to a couple students during Sunday school, and we decided that it was time to get away from specific book studies, and we're gonna mix things up a little bit. So we're gonna start looking through some of the more obscure Bible stories. Now, if you've grown up in the church, you've heard a lot of Bible stories, and even the ones that you've heard, you've probably heard a watered down version of it that's not quite accurate to what the Bible says. But I'm sure there are also a lot of Bible stories that you've not heard before. And the one that we have for today is actually one that I had never heard before, which is really weird because I've definitely read through this book of the Bible before, and I just don't remember this story. So the story is in 2 Kings chapter 6, and it's just a couple of verses. It's verses 1 through 7. So we're gonna read through that, and it's just one of those Bible stories that we don't talk about much. It's not like a major plot point in the Bible, but it has some key details for us. So let's check it out. 2 Kings chapter 6. It says, "The company of the prophets said to Elisha, 'Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan, where each of us can get a pole, and let us build a place there for us to live.' And he said, 'Go.' Then one of them said, 'Won't you please come with your servants?' 'I will,' Elisha replied, and he went with them. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water. 'Oh, my lord,' he cried out, 'it was borrowed.' The man of God asked, 'Where did it fall?' When he showed him the place, Elijah cut a stick and threw it there and made the iron float. 'Lift it out,' he said. Then the man reached out his hand and took it." How many of you guys have ever gone skipping stones across the water? I've done it many times. Pretty much anytime I come across a flat body of water, I will try to find some flat stones and try to skip some stones across. I think my record is 10 skips, which for some people may not be that much, but for me that's a lot. Okay, 10 skips is a lot of skips. That was a good day, good day. What happens to the rock when it's done skipping? Or, if you're just bad at skipping or you just have a really big rock, what happens to it? If you said it sinks, you're right. Do rocks float? They do not. And there's a whole lot of science that goes into that. We don't need to go into why rocks don't float, but we know that they don't. Metal is much the same way. So the Air Force, I know they use a whole bunch of steel and all sorts of metal to make their ships. And, they have planes on top of it and all flies off of it. And somehow that stays afloat. But there's other stuff going on there that causes that to happen. When you take an axe head, as we have in this story, and you toss it into the water, what's gonna happen? It's gonna sink. And that's exactly what happened. Because iron does not float. Now, what's interesting about this story, it's a short little story. It's sandwiched between two other major events that are going on. I believe there is a healing of a general in the previous section in chapter 5. And then the following section, there is the deliverance of Israel's army. So there's some major stuff going on in the kingdom of Israel on both sides of this little snippet here, these 7 verses. And yet, they're included in 2 Kings. They are recorded, which tells us that this is somehow a significant event. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are Lord of the Rings fans. There's a section where a character named Boromir, he makes this comment about the ring. And if you can tell by the title, The Lord of the Rings, the ring is kind of a big deal. It's small, so it's just a little simple gold ring. And he says this, he says, "Is it not a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing?" And then he goes on to do some stuff that's a little questionable and people get upset about it. But I think his question is telling. Sometimes the small things are way more important than they seem. It's very easy to read through 2 Kings and not have any second thought about this passage, this little section right here. As obviously I didn't, because I'd read through this before and don't remember this story. But there's something really important we need to learn from this. The man specifies that the iron axe head was borrowed. Now, how many of you guys have borrowed something and then lost it? Kind of sucks. and kind of ruins your trustworthiness. The person you borrowed from is usually not so willing to lend to you again because they don't really think you're going to get them back their thing. And I'm sure that's what this guy was worried about too. I mean, his trustworthiness was going to go down, and he's studying to be a prophet as evidenced by the company of the prophets. So if you can't trust a prophet, how good are they anymore? Because you're supposed to be able to trust them to tell you what God has said. If you can't trust him, then he's no good as a prophet. So it's a really big deal that his trustworthiness stays. And so he's got this axe head that he has borrowed, and he has lost it in the river. And as we talked about before, iron sinks. So not really a high chance of getting that back. Elisha comes to him and he says, hey, where did you lose it? So he shows him the spot. And then Elisha throws this stick in the water, and somehow that causes the iron to float, which we talked about. That doesn't happen. That's not normal. And the guy gets the axe head back. And then that's the end of the story. It literally says the man reached out his hand and took it. And then in verse 8, now the king of Aram was at war with it. Like it just goes on. Like there's no like, and here's what this means. No, here's the moral of the story. And I think that's the hard part about reading narrative in the Old Testament. But we have this story here because it demonstrates to us that God cares about the little things. Like obviously Elisha did this and God's power was revealed. Elisha didn't make the iron float. He can't do that. That was God's power at work, causing this to float. And we have to ask ourselves, why does God care? This is the God of the universe. He created all things. There's a war going on in Israel at this time. Why does God care about this axe head? And there's two reasons, I think, that God cares. The number one reason is, of course, his own testimony. Because this was a prophet of the Lord whose trustworthiness was now about to be questioned because he had borrowed this thing and wasn't going to return it. And so if he couldn't be trusted, then God wouldn't be able to be trusted either. And then the other side of it is that God actually cares about his people. He cares about the things that we care about. When we have stress, he cares about those things. When we are worried, when we are in trouble, when we have things going on that we need help with, God cares about those things. And this story shows us that. This guy had a simple care. He had lost something he had borrowed. He wanted to get it back. And so God miraculously got it back for him. That's a big deal. And so this is just, an obscure Bible story from the Old Testament that people gloss over all the time. And yet it has this powerful message to let us know that God cares about the little things. So as you're looking through your life and you're thinking about the things that are going on the day to day, the week to week, you guys are coming up at the end of the school year. You got tests that you're taking and studying for. You probably have some projects you got to finish up, maybe some speeches to make. You got different things going on. And it's easy to think, well, this is small. God doesn't care about this. This story tells us that he does. God really does care about the little things, and he cares about you. He cares about what's going on in your life. So don't be afraid to ask for help. This guy went to Elisha and he said, hey, I need to get this back. And Elisha was like, all right, let's get it back. Let's do this. So as you guys are thinking through your lives, as you're thinking through the things that you're struggling with, as you're thinking through your problems, just remember, God does care about the little things. Nothing is too small for him to be involved in, to get involved in, to help you with. So don't be afraid to ask him for help, to go to him with your problems, because he cares. God cares about you. He cares about what's going on in your life. So go to him, talk to him, share with him, ask him for help. I promise you, he is listening and he cares. That's going to wrap up today's video. As we go into the future weeks, as we go through the summer, we're going to be looking at a bunch of more obscure Bible stories. And if you have stories that you've heard from the Bible that you've got questions about, ask in the comment section below. Do the like, the subscribe, the bell thing, all of that. If you want to, don't have to. We're just here to help you to grow and to learn more about the Bible. So I'll catch you in next week's video. See ya.